Feel free to I'm pretty laid back and goof around and stuff. So feel free to, like, if you want to come up, get a closer look, or ask any questions, just go ahead and shout them out. Or if you have any questions that come up, and otherwise I'll just jump in there unless there's any initial questions. I'm working on. I guess I should tell you the paper. Um, it's a 140-pound rough Fabriano Artistico, and I work on a variety of papers, but this is the paper I've been working on recently. It's a very sensitive paper, so it lifts very easy and gets some really amazing textures and things like that. But it is also, there's pros and cons because it lifts very easy. If you are an artist who likes to do lots of glazing, one layer on top of another layer on top of another layer, then you can run into trouble, right? Because it lifts really easy. So if you have a layer of paint on and then you apply a thin glaze of another paint on top of that, and you're too heavy-handed, it'll start reactivating that previous layer and start creating some mud possibly, or start lifting that previous layer and start causing blossoms and blooms. So every paper's got its kind of own little feel, but so anyways, I enjoy this, but it does take some getting used to if you're used to a more forgiving paper. This is a more sensitive paper. There's actually an artist that we mentioned, we talked about the other day, actually just passed away, a gentleman named Chenki Chi up in Duluth, Minnesota. And he would do these amazing koi fish, and he'd lift the koi out, or florals, all kinds of different subjects, but a lot of like underwater scenes of like koi and things. And he used Fabriano Artistico because he was lifting, right? So, it depends on the approach that you take. Anyway, so I'm going to jump in and just give you kind of I work in a variety of approaches. I can show you some different paintings that I do. Sometimes I'll mask, and which is like a rubber cement for those who might be new to watercolor, and it kind of protects the white of the paper. And then I'll like pour, or run the colors across. Sometimes I'll fill the canvas with color, like David saw that in Canuga. I did like this lion painting, and I started with really mid and dark values, and ran water through it and created all these really cool textures. And then I pushed the subject, parts of the painting back by negative painting, and popping other parts forward by, again, negative painting, pushing other parts back, popping things forward, or lifting the paint out. So there's lots of different approaches to watercolor. That's why I love the medium. It's so versatile. You can, paint real direct and really wet, or you can paint like, I guess like an oil or acrylic painter, and just, really cake it on and not have it running all over the place. So it's real versatile. And it's the approach that I'm going to do today with the billowing clouds is I'm going to kind of start light values. This is pretty much one of the most common approaches, right? Is to work with your light values and start getting darker and darker and darker as you progress. And so it will start kind of out of focus, and it'll look, as I was mentioning to David Becker, that there was a guy that I've taken some workshops with who'd come by my painting, and he wouldn't say anything. Later on, he'd come by and say, "Wow, pulled that out of the fire." And so they always kind of start like they look like they're going to be going in the garbage, and sometimes they do. Sometimes they do go in the garbage, but hopefully I can pull it out of the fire. So it starts out of focus typically, and they kind of get in focus as the values, which is how light and dark values, how light and dark things are, right? So as things get darker, it'll start to get more and more in focus. Okay, so what I'm going to do is pre-wet some areas, and I tend to work light to dark, like I just mentioned, and warm to cool. So if there's any warms in the picture, I'll typically start with those, because obviously it's much easier to put a cool or get things darker and cooler than if things are cool. If I start cool and dark and I say, oh, I wish I had some nice bright warms on that, it's going to be very hard to get a warm on top of the cool or dark, right? So I'll just start by pre-wetting some areas. And I'm looking at the clouds, and I do see, maybe it's a little bit of warms in some areas, but it's pretty much a blue sky and blue clouds. But there is some warms in there, so we'll throw that in there. So I'm just going to pre-wet a lot of area with some clean water with a big 1-inch flat Robert Simmons brush, and already it's getting tinted a little bit because my board's dirty. And there comes the blue right there already.
This is special technique.
This is, yes, yeah. It just saves time if you work on a dirty board. It's like it's already coming together. Look at that. So when I'm toning the paper, with which is supposed to be with warms, but it's a cools because the board's dirty. It's when I'm toning the paper, I'm thinking to myself, well, actually, I should make sure I should see if anybody in the workshop was paying attention. If anybody was in the workshop, what am I going to tone the what am I going to avoid as I tone the paper? The whites, yes, yes. So I'm avoiding the whites. You can see that already. I'm kind of carving around the whites there, and the sky is blue. It's like watercolor loves this. It knew I wanted the blue sky, and so it just went ahead and did it for me. I don't even have to do anything. I've got it, I've got this fancy easel so I can tilt it at any direction. And so I'm kind of pre-wetting and I'm avoiding some white areas because the reason I'm pre-wetting is I kind of want or I do want the colors to mix and mingle on the paper. And I'm not hitting everything that I'm going to color, but this will help. Basically, you've probably heard the term like an underpainting or a mother color of the subjects or killing the whites of the paper. The different phrases people say to talk about basically doing what I'm doing here, which is toning the paper. And I don't even know what's down here. We'll just drop in some water and just pray that it works out. I do a lot of that too, a lot of praying that it works out. And actually, we'll go right into some water here. Okay, so I pre-wet a bunch of stuff, and already the sky's already tinted, so almost done. Didn't it? And you get your fingerprints. It might as well get your fingerprints in right away. You know what's going to happen, so just get it out of the way. There we go. And you get red fingerprints because watercolor always likes to cause trouble.
I'm not gonna write, take your paper down, you're using flip.
Yeah, using clips. So the reason behind that is sometimes I wet the back of the paper, and if I tape it down, I lose that. So let's say I'll just go ahead and do it. So we'll wet the back of the paper. So that allows me to wet the back. Like we were in the workshop and there was kind of a fan blowing on it. So I should have done that, right? To keep the surface wet longer. And a lot of artists will take a sponge and they'll wet the back. And like some places they'll, if it's really dry, um they might put like a wet cloth or something behind it. I wasn't planning on doing that, but just to show you, it doesn't matter. Show you how different ways you can paint. Sometimes I'll take the whole paper and dunk it in a tub of water and work on it wet, completely wet, front and back. So now, what's that? Yeah, sometimes I'll dunk it into like a bathtub. Yeah. Oh, work on it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I was going to do that for you, but David said, no, that's where we draw the line. We're not having you in the tub. So, oh man, that'd be cool. Okay, so now the back is, soaking wet. So that's a option if you want to basically there's in the workshop that I just taught, we talked about different moisture qualities of the paper. And a nice moisture content of the paper, quality of the paper. One of my favorite artists is a guy named Joseph Bukvik, and in his book he's got a watercolor clock, and one hand of the clock is pointing at consistencies of paint, very thin, transparent, or very thick and pasty paint, and he has the other hand of the clock pointing at the moisture quality of the paper. And so if I'm working on dry paper and you're working on let's just wet this too, what the heck. And you're working on dripping wet paper, we're going to get completely different results, right? And if I'm working with really fluid paint and you're working with thick gooey paint, we're going to get different results. So I think it's a good thing for like instructors to kind of talk, get a common vocabulary. So if I'm saying, hey, I'm using cobalt blue, consistency of coffee, the color, kind of a little bit of the ratio of water to pigment that's on the brush. So right now I've been working with tea consistency, right? It's like dirty water. It was just water, and that hit my board. I haven't added any paint. It was just the board was dirty, right? And it's so great having David Becker and some other artists that were from Florida come in. So if I totally just botch this up, they can come over and take over and say, "Here, let's help you out here. This is going nowhere." So anyway, so I'm working with T consistency paint, and then so it's similar to values, right? The more water in your pigment, the lighter the value is going to be, but it's not the same thing as values. There's a difference, right? Like if yellow, I can only get, doesn't matter how thick I get it, I can only get a certain value. Does that make sense? Okay, I know David Becker's been doing a lot of teaching, so I just like preaching to the choir. Everybody knows everything here. Look at this. I'm cleaning the palette. People in my workshop thought he never cleans it, and there I did. I cleaned a little section. There, get some nice bright yellow. So I got two brushes, one brush drop-in paint, one brush to integrate and soften edges. So we talked a lot about edges in the workshop. So there's a lot of important, things to consider when you're painting, and there's the color, of course, the color, but you probably heard the phrase, and this is my palette, it's just use the table, don't tell them, is um, there's a phrase that, color gets all the credit, but, value does all the work, right? So I'm adding a little bit of some warms I see right here. And it's a Quinn Gold and some alizarin crimson, maybe a little warm along here. A little warm in here. I'm just using the side of my brush, using a thirsty brush. Oh, I lost my white there because I wasn't paying attention. It's all right. Don't tell him. I'm hoping that nobody saw these clouds and say, Dave, I saw those clouds and there was a worm in that cloud right there and you missed it. Like probably a lot of room for forgiveness with clouds, right? So just toning the paper, dropping in some warms.
What's the two-brush thing again?
So I got one brush that drops in the pigment. So this is a really nice pointy brush. I got some other brushes I just got, I haven't tried out. They look amazing. They have the words David Becker on them. They look really nice. So I'm looking forward to trying them. You guys should try them too. I haven't had a chance yet. So right now I've got a couple Perla brushes and it's got a really nice point, like the Becker brushes, really snappy point to them. So I got one brush I'll drop in the paint with and another brush to soften edge. So this is an old brush, same brush, but instead of throwing it away, I just use it to integrate, to kind of beat up or soften edges, So we talked about edges, we got hard edges like right here, right? And then we got lost edge where you can't tell where this disappears, it kind of just fades out. And we got soft edges, kind of blurry edges, and then we got broken edges like dry brush. We got different types of edges. So I'm always sensitive, cognizant of what kind of edges my shapes have. And then sometimes I'll, every once in a while, not too often, but sometimes I'll spatter water, right? The people in the workshop are like, yeah, he spatters water. Let me tell you, I spatter a lot of water. But okay, so now we've added a little bit of warm. Let's see, put a little bit of warm somewhere else. Let's see, let's put a little warm here, here. I'm just gonna throw some in here just to get some other colors in. Okay, it's mostly going to be blue, but now I've got at least a little warm in there. Okay, now let's get some blues. I got a variety of blues. Dave and I were talking. We like this Holbein lavender. It's kind of a fun blue, so we'll incorporate that. I don't want to get too dark. Here's some cobalt teal, and I got, is that my, oh, that's my like chin or something rubbing against that. Sorry about that. Zip that down or something. I was like, what is that rustling noise? There. So I'm throwing in some blues. Let's just get crazy. There we go. And tilt it, let it run, let it integrate, working wet and wet. And let's see, let's grab a little cobalt blue or cerulean with that. This side over here, if we look at the photo, is very, what kind of edges? So I'm trying to get these edges, right? Very very soft edges, right? All right. So just basically using this as inspiration. Now it's not going to look identical to that, but it'll have the same kind of feel to that. And let's drop in some of those blues here and start negative painting, which means painting around something. So now we've got a hard edge here. We got soft and lost edges here. Let me know if you have any questions as I'm starting to get darker. Negative painting around some of these clouds, trying to leave a little bit of white. So I started very tea consistency. Now I'm getting like coffee consistency, like thicker, but really wet and wet. And I've got some pigment that was old and crusty on here. So let's let's get rid of that. A little darker, letting it integrate on the paper. Curving around, letting it integrate. Look at the angle I have. Oops, don't get it on your iPad. That's distracting. There we go. Yeah, one time I had a studio in my house for a while where I was teaching workshops until COVID, and and one time I was teaching a workshop, and man, the people were so messy. I thought, gosh, I'm gonna have to clean all these tables. I said, gosh, so I said, gosh, you guys are messy. And then I looked up at the ceiling and I had paint above me. Okay, maybe I shouldn't say that. So let's start getting some blues into here. That's wet, and I don't want that to integrate, so I'm going to hold off on hitting that area. And this is a kind of a mystery area. I wear my Happy Cloud. Yesterday I wore my Bob Ross Happy Cloud shirt. I don't think I have that on today. I've got all this Bob Ross stuff. It's become kind of a funny, kind of a joke that got out of hand. We got Bob Ross everything. Bob Ross Chia Pet, Bob Ross Fridge Magnet Finger Puppet, Bob Ross Energy Drink, Bob Ross Cereal, Bob Ross Band-Aids for the not so happy accidents. Bob Ross, I got everything. It's really gotten out of control. All right, starting to see maybe some clouds coming out of this mess. This is supposed to be white. Doesn't matter. Don't tell anybody. So you can see how it's nice and soft there. We got hard edges. And when you look at the photo, you'll go, okay, I see what he's trying to do. I see what he's up to. But we don't have to blindly copy this either. We can pull out our artistic license and change it. But I tend to blindly copy it. It's hard when it's in front of you and you're like, okay, I got to get it exactly like it is. But that's why I start spattering water. It's like once you start spattering water, it's like, okay, that ain't gonna happen. That'll loosen it up. I've never taught a workshop where someone said, David, I really want to get tighter. Can you show me, you know, can you show me how do I tighten up my painting? You know? Everybody wants to know how to get looser, right? And so the spattering the water. So I tried to do that in the workshop, show people how to loosen up their paintings some different ways.
David, how did you keep the white in your clouds when they were spraying all around I mean,
She was asking, how did I keep the white of the cloud when I was spraying everywhere? But I'm really careful, and watercolor loves me, so it really goes right where I want it, and would never make a mess.
that's what's wrong with you.
You gotta speak kindly to it. I tell people that watercolor is like having a conversation. Oils and clean water. Yeah. It's clean. Yeah, clean water. Yeah, or fairly clean. Yeah, I did. Yeah. But still, it's relatively clean. I don't know. David was making fun of my palette. He said it. You got a dirtier palette than me, or something like that. Does it look dirty? I don't think it looks dirty. I mean, I can tell that's a yellow. Well, I taught a workshop this last fall. Speaking of, people thinking my palette's dirty, I taught a workshop last fall in Ohio, and people, I've had this comment already a few times in the workshop. It's like, how do you bring that home? It's all soaking wet. I mean, it's just, it's a puddle, just puddles and puddles and puddles on that palette. And they're like, how do you get that home? Well, so what I did in Ohio is I put it out in the sun to dry, and I, went back in and started cleaning up. And I go back out, and my palette's gone. I'm like, where the heck is it? I'm looking all over for it, and there's a big, huge dumpster about this high. I had to get up on a box and look in there. I saw the lid in there, and I was like, oh, there's the lid. Somebody threw that in the garbage. Can you believe that? It's like a piece of artwork, right? How would you think that's garbage? I don't know. I was offended. So okay, we got some. I know if I got paint in my hands, eventually it's going to get on on the painting. I just get fingerprints everywhere. It's like my signature. It's just like, so I might as well start cleaning my hands right now. So already we're starting to see some clouds, right?
Yes.
All right. And they're hopefully looking kind of billowy. So I'm keeping kind of getting darker. And down in here, I'm going to have a little more fun with the spattered water and things like that. So, and hopefully it looks something like the picture. Let's see. Waiting for this to dry so I can carve that out. Okay, all right. Let's see. Anything I need to soften while it's wet? I got my softening brush. I think it looks pretty good. Okay, let's go down here and actually let's get a shield. So I just use my piece of plastic here, and I'll shield. Like there's some white. Well, I can't. That's the cloud picture, but I know this is going to be white, like white caps of waves. So I don't want to get that wet, or else it won't be white. So I'll just spatter here. Let's keep this wet down here. What the heck? So it just stays flat. Okay. Any questions? Any other? I didn't answer your question though. What was the question? I just got on a tangent. Oh, how did I keep it? Okay, that's right. That's the answer. No, I'm actually pretty careful when I spatter water. If it does, that's why I have a tissue. So if it does get in an area I don't want to hit, I hit it with a tissue, and then to keep it dry. So I'm constantly, keeping an eye on things, and I'll hit it with a tissue if it goes in an area I don't want. But so far, it's been behaving itself pretty well. It's been good. Let's see here. Kind of want to make these look like they're billowing out at us. Let's see. So I'm going to get a little bit darker. Geez, hurry up. I already would have finished this by now. Yeah, all right. Hustling. All right, let's just have some fun here. I don't know if that was a good thing to do. Sometimes I just like to play sometimes, it's like, you gotta have a good time. The process of painting is as important as the product, having a good time. So sometimes, yeah, that just loosens it up and I'll just like, okay, now I gotta make something of that. I gotta integrate it and then, sometimes, you create these, the wet and wet, you get this fun, it starts running and you start getting some happy accidents. Sometimes they're not happy, but sometimes you get some happy accidents.
Do you find that like the plein air has changed you compared to studio?
Yeah. Dave and I were talking about plein air and it just, because I'm a slow painter, well, relatively slow. I mean, when you look at David, I'm slow, but compared to some art, a lot of, when I teach a workshop, people are, you're so fast. It's all relative, but with plein air, of course, got a little goober or something there. Now I'm gonna have a blossom there. Oh, no, I'm making it worse. I should have let it dry and just brushed it off, but of course I didn't. So we'll just missed it. The best part of a workshop is, okay, if you make a mistake, how do you fix it? So missed it. So yeah, the plein air, just as long as I got a goober there, we'll just kind of tie it in. Makes you, paint faster and think of the big simple shapes versus all these little details because you don't have time, you focus on those big things. Yeah, it's so good in so many other ways. What do you think is good about it, David? Mr. Becker?
Yeah, I just like, I met David in the middle of Minnesota, in the middle of nowhere. Here's this tall guy come walking up, I'm painting, literally, in like, up in Lake Superior or in Minnesota, Grand Marais, up in the Gunflint Trail. I mean, where the people, I mean, there's nothing there. I mean, it's literally and I'm painting with a couple other painters, actually with Erin, this lady I painted with, and we were painting, and all of a sudden he comes walking up, and I'm like, and I recognize him because he did a workshop or he did a Zoom meeting for us, right?
Yeah,
He,
yeah.
he did a Zoom meeting for us, so I knew him from there. That's the only time I met him. And then he comes walking up, and I'm like, "Hey, aren't you David R. Smith?" So yeah. And so
And I said, you're in my painting spot.
yeah.
Oh.
I was I was floored because I mean, you're literally, you couldn't even find a map to get to this place. It's like, how the hell did you get here?
I knew David Becker was really good, and so I was kind of like the paparazzi kind of following him. And just like,
Well, then the next day, I'm painting at on the shore of Lake Superior. Who walks up again? Instead.
I was following him.
And then the next day, I found him. It's like all of a sudden I'm walking to the park and he's doing a painting and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe it. So like 3 days in a row, we just came upon where we were painting. And I'm talking about an area of this thousands of miles, and you couldn't even imagine that you could ever find anybody. I mean, if you're looking for somebody, you would never find them.
I found him. I was searching. It took me all day. I tracked him down. So I'm kind of bringing this dark now. Now that it's a little drier, I had to kind of wait. So watercolor is a lot of timing, right? So I couldn't do this because it would have leaked in there. So now it's dry enough. It's still damp, but I'm very sensitive to the moisture content of my brush. So I know it's damp, so I got to use a very thirsty brush, a brush that's not just dripping. So I'm very sensitive to the content of moisture on my brush, the content of the moisture on the paper. Um, let's see, maybe a little bit of some color, a little dark down, a little bit of color right there. Okay.
One thing I did notice that when I think both of us started plein air painting at that time. Now, my first year going out plein air painting and making it a big, like, see what this is like. And I think both of our paintings, I could see them change every year since then. That was like, I think 5 years ago, I think, or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And, but I can see, because every year I would look at what David was doing, what I was doing. It's like, it was amazing the color change that we were doing. And the, softening the areas, it makes things simpler. It just really, I think it helped a lot. I think it's really good to go out and plein air paint and just, you see the real colors, you're not fake colors by the fake colors of photographs and stuff. And
And the other thing, David, I like about plein air painting that comes join us is you can see it in 3 dimensions.
yeah,
Whereas if you're taking a photograph, you go home, the greens are dark brown, they're black, they're
Yeah.
not real. Yeah, it's easier.
you get to see the real colors of things too. Like we as watercolors seem to tend to be really bright with our colors, but when you go out there in the real world, it's not that color. Those greens are not that green, the ugly green they sometimes get. They're like a lot of orange in them, and so you see stuff like that. And you can change them. You have artistic license, but you get to see the real thing then.
Yeah, yeah, good call. Yeah, that's what I meant to say, what he said.
Said it very well.
All right, we're gonna start getting some layers. Now I'm doing more negative painting with some darker values. I don't want to get this too dark though. Tying in some of those splashes of color. And we're getting some kind of fun little drips here. It just keeps saying watercolorless, it's watercolorless, watercolorless, watercolor. What could go, what could go wrong, what could go wrong? Maybe a little more spat, right? Mess it up a little more.
David, did you get blossoms if you did that spraying without shielding it?
It's gonna create blossoms, yeah, but it's vertical, or it's at an angle, so the blossoms are gonna run. And so now I'm gonna spatter water with this brush. I'm just trying to create an environment where some fun things will happen. Be fun, be fun, be fun. Because isn't it like, I love a watercolor that has, shows the control of the artist. So I showed control. I'm representing the image. I don't think anybody's gonna, not identify those as clouds. And then I love parts of the painting. They're just loose and just show the beauty of watercolor medium. So I'm trying to get a variety of both. Some looser areas, some tighter areas. That makes sense. And that's what I think people really like in a water. At least a lot of people like. That's what I enjoy. Is some tighter areas, some looser areas. And it just keeps your interest longer. If everything's kind of just spelled out, you might be like, oh, okay, that's nice. But if there's some areas that are mystery, it kind of engages you a little more, and you're kind of like, oh, what's going on there? And you kind of, you use your imagination and kind of fill it in and say, oh, like somebody was saying, they looked at a painting I did yesterday. I can't remember what I was painting, but they said, that looks like a cup and a straw. I'm like, what? Right? Remember that? Somebody said something like that? It's like cup and straw. It's like when you look at clouds, it's like, oh, I see a rabbit. I see you start using your imagination. So I'm trying to, and dropping in some darker paint here, make some of these highlights pop out. So it looks like it's kind of billowing out. So working wet into wet. So I'm getting a variety of edges, getting some soft edges as it's working wet into wet. And I know it's one of these things you could just spend. We got the whole day, right? You could just paint and paint and paint and play with. But already it's like you could be done. You can say, oh, it looks good. But you could just keep playing with it and making more rows of clouds. It's almost as fun as painting rocks. I mean, you can just do layers and layers of rocks. And it's just a gift that keeps giving. But And then sometimes when you work wet and wet like this, you get some crazy things happening. You got to be able to relinquish some control. It's like I heard someone say watercolor is like having a conversation. You know, you in oils and acrylic, you put the color in and it pretty much, it just stays where you put it. Watercolor, you put it down and you say, let's do this. And watercolor replies back, no, we're not. And you've got to kind of react with what it gives you, right? And work in harmony with it. It's and wet and wet. You just, well, it's like Forrest Gump said in the movie. Life is like a watercolor. You never know what you're gonna get. I'll start playing with these waves. How we doing on time?
We do a halfway point each of
15 minutes, okay.
a break, just for.
I could just keep painting and painting, but I know that people want to stretch their legs. Trying to give a suggestion of some layers here. And I love it how it runs down like that. Got some shadows within this area. Again, I want to make it look like it's billowing out. Maybe it's raining. Okay, let's play with some water here. Issue if anything got out of control. Whoops, that's supposed to be white. Don't do that. So that's what the tissue's for. Okay. Don't do that. All right, how's the top looking?
Very nice.
Okay, using these same colors that I had in the sky, bringing it down into the water. Getting some different values in there, dropping a thicker pigment into the thinner pigment. So I started with a thinner, like a tea or coffee. Now I'm dropping a cream into the coffee. So different consistencies of paint. Okay, now I'm going to flip over to the waves picture and look at that for inspiration. Okay. For a break. I think this is another one. I think David Becker's fast. I'll show him.
You show us your wave reference picture for me.
You're welcome to take a photo of. Can you see it? Yeah, but you see it? So if it's in the fire, what am I identifying? What value? What value am I carving around?
Carving around the white.
Around the whites, yeah. Carving around those whites. I got these little drips, super fun. All right. Oh, let's get a little bit bigger. I've been using these Pearl as my favorite brush, but let's get a bigger brush here for this big area. Kind of like this here. All right, this is the point where I pretend that I'm not feeling well. I let David take over and try to make something out of this mess. I got a call. Help. No, we can make this work. Reminds me of I was talking about some different artists. There's a woman named an artist that was named Anita Engel, which I'm sure a lot of you know. And she would in her video she paints real loose and has all this fun and does this, she doesn't even get this identified, just kind of in her video at least, she got it really loose and crazy, and then she just says, and the rest of it's hard work. And she puts it aside. She never shows you how to finish it, And it's like, whoa, back up here. Whoa, so what happened? I'm missing something here.
She the one that wets paper in the stream. She goes out back of her little house and submerges the paper in the creek.
Possibly. So grab some of this color here and just bring it in. There's this shadow. It's not like it's all bright white. There's all kinds of shadows within this area. It's my finger. When you whisper, I don't know what you're saying.
Actually, it looks like it's raining back there in some of those clouds.
Yeah, that's all I was hoping for. Just letting it get calm. I did that on purpose. Oh, I actually did kind of try to create that environment, but stand it. Yeah. Yeah, it's it's a camera tripod, and if you want to be able to swivel it around, you just need any kind of camera tripod that's on a ball joint, and then you can swivel in any direction. So that's the special part of it. It's just a camera tripod, and then the silver part is a Gorilla easel. Gorilla, like spelled like guerrilla warfare. Gorilla. Like gorilla, like the animal, like gorilla, like some other kind of gorilla. See, I'm getting tighter and tighter as I progress into this now. So it was like really loose, and now I'm getting tighter, dropping cream into the coffee, dropping a thicker pigment into the thinner pigment. Letting it run up in some places. Integrating it. Somehow integrating it. Reacting, having the conversation with Mr. Watercolor. Lifting, creating some blossoms and blooms. What's that?
A male. The versus a female. Mr.
Mr. Mine's a Mr. I guess.
You can take a break whenever Mr. Watercolor is ready.
Okay. Oh, now I'm in trouble. David warned me about you guys. Some suggestion of the waves and the water here. Just put some blossoms and blooms. Just basically instead of spattering, I'm kind of just carrying some water in, and it'll push the pigment and get these. You see those veins of highlights and stuff in the water. Right. I need to get the dark in there while it's wet, right? Because I want it to integrate. So, and feel free to get up, like you're like, yeah, I need to get a snack. Go for it. You won't miss anything. It's nothing. It's all just, it just paints itself. It's all just so easy, right? You won't miss a thing.
So you use them tight just enough so that you can move it around whenever you want, but tight enough so that it doesn't move while you're painting, while you're putting.
Yeah, like I can push it. Yeah, but it'll like push it around. Yes, correct.
When you did that demonstration for us on Zoom, I went looking for that same time, I think, because I saw you do this on an easel in your studio, and I was like, that's how I got all these other easels, because I went and started looking for tripods that were like David's, and
Oh.
I found this one, I found this one, a bunch of other ones. It's all because of watching that Zoom meeting. All the tripods were all because of seeing it. I'm like, I gotta get a tripod like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I took whoops, what's that? I took an Alvaro workshop, and I saw somebody in the workshop had kind of created a weird kind of tripod that he could pivot around. And I thought, I'll be rich. I'll invent a tripod that I can swivel around. And of course, Gorilla Easel has created this, so they already kind of thought of that. And you just matter of putting it on a ball joint. Oh, foiled again.
So how does the ball joint fasten to your Gorilla?
I can show you when I get on.
So the ball joint came with a tripod, correct?
Yeah, the camera tripod. Yeah.
And I bought like 6 different tripods since I thought there was. This one had a hole, and the other one had the ball, and so I got 2 of them that I have the ball now. So, but it's amazing all the different tripods they have. And I was like, I went looking. What did that David R have?
Oh, you could have
What's he?
shoot me an email. Actually, well, I don't think I have actually. I don't have it on my truck. I do have a free videos on my website, and one of them's on my materials. So you can just look at that, and it talks about this whole setup. I used to not do that until I saw this guy named David Becker was like putting all these videos out. I was like, oh God, now I got to do that. He's my nemesis. Put a color in here. They're getting really kind of nitpicky. Okay, a little bit more, and then I'll stop. A little bit of just to pop this forward, push this back. We'll put it, even though I like how nice and light it is there. We'll drop a little color here. I'll pop this forward. Is it starting to resemble some waves? A little bit? Okay. Again, it's best if you do it at home to just keep going and don't stop. But we'll take a little break and I can still pull it out of the fire. But it's already, I think it's out of the fire. It's already come together. Yeah, try it around. All right. Yeah. Feel free, and if you want to take a photo of it, kind of step by step, you can come up and take a picture of this. And again, I've got some paintings over there. You're welcome to look at if you want. And there's an email list if you want to get your name on my newsletter. And create this fun like texture all on its own, right? And so that's the beauty of watercolor. It's just, all these fun, happy accidents, which reminds me, I'm supposed to show my Bob Ross shirt. Let's see what the Bob Ross shirt of the day says. Okay, this shirt says, everybody needs a friend. Got his little pocket squirrel on his shoulder.
One day.
Everybody needs a friend. I wear the Bob Ross every day. I saw the shirt. What happened was I saw the Bob Ross shirt that said "No mistakes, just happy accidents," and I thought, and I'm teaching, and I want everybody to lighten up, and have fun. So I thought I'll wear this shirt when I'm teaching, or I'll wear the Happy Tree shirt. And everybody saw me wearing the shirts, and then they just started buying me stuff. These socks, I hate them, but I got them just because got a little hair on.
It's okay.
These were a gift from my nemesis, David Becker. And then my underwear. All right, we'll stop there. Nobody wants to see my underoos. Somebody was asking about there's the email sign up list for my newsletter and the courses. So there's on my website there's if you go to if you just Google my name, David R. Smith watercolor, not David R. because then you might get somebody else, but David R. Smith, you might get me. On the left hand side you can see the paintings, you can see it, but you can always set up for the newsletter by just hitting newsletter and then just hitting the subscribe, and you can just do it yourself. But then there's the workshops tab, and you can kind of see what's going on with workshops. So this is like a Zoom workshop. So we did, or no, these are online courses. If you tap, these are available indefinitely, so you can, if you want any of these, like if you want to see how I pour and do a floral, or I pour and do a winter scene, you get them for years. I'm not sure how long it'll stay up for a million years, but it'll be for years. You get, and basically indefinitely. And then below that is my calendar. So we did a Zoom workshop in January. It was on winter theme stuff. This just got into TWSA, that painting, or a very similar painting to that. And then Dave and I just taught in Canuga, and then here's a workshop coming up in April where and you can actually tap the spring Zoom workshop. And you can see we're going to focus on buildings, and focus on people and cars. And we're also going to do this scene here, David, we're actually just talking about. I plain or painted this up in Grand Marais, this picture here. So I'm going to show people how I did that. But we'll do a scene with some horses in it. And so we'll do this scene, these three scenes. There's actually another scene with some variations with some palm trees. So that's a Zoom workshop. In the Zoom workshop, you get recordings for 60 days. So if you're interested in that, just go to the website, click on that. And then the videos here, the videos tab, you go through, there's the e-courses again, but there's some free videos. This is a really good one that it's got like 20,000 subscribers based on that one video. And so I talk about how I create the misty trees and lakes and things like that. And there's a bunch of other videos I've done for other people. And then there's instructional videos. These are all free. And I talk about the consistency of the paint, moisture quality of the paper, edges, and then there's the materials. So if you're like, okay, what was that easel? You hit that and it'll show the easel, and you can look at that if you want. Now this was done like 5 or 6 years ago, so things evolve, right? but it has the easel. I know it has most of the same materials. And yeah, so that's it. So that's the web page. And so if you're interested in looking at any of those videos, most of those are free. Okay, back to our wave. So here's the wave picture. And if you come back up here later and you want a photo of it, just let me know and you can take a picture of it and give it a shot if you'd like to paint it. So usually I keep painting as it's drying and playing with it, but I, want to let people who were hungry, so I had to step away. So, but got some happy accidents, right? So it was like, this is really cool. Maybe I don't even want to touch it. It's like really cool just the way it is.
Once you got something that-
So now that it's already done this really fun thing, and if I go into it, it's going to mess that up. So now I was telling somebody, they said, well, you got 30 minutes. And I said, well, the 30 minutes, the last 2% of the painting, I take more time doing that than I did the first 80%. I started off, just it's so easy or easier. And then when I get to the nitpicky details, that's when I really actually started slowing down. So I can spend just as much time doing the little details than I do that first 80% or so. It's funny. So I'm going to just start carving out this top of this a little bit better. So it's a little more organic versus a straight line. So little details. So I start off really loose, light, then mids, then darks, getting darker and darker. And then like the last step is details and edits, start softening edges where I need them or correcting things. Because with all the spattered water, sometimes it goes where I don't want it. So checking checking the action line of the shape. Is it interesting? Or is it straight across? We want to make sure this is looking like turbulent water. Maybe I like this little blossom, but I'm gonna go ahead and kill it. I like when it runs, but we got plenty of that kind of stuff here. We don't need this here. It doesn't really make sense. You gotta keep this going like this. There we go. And it got some dry brush, maybe a little sparkle. It's kind of nice. So a variety of edges. Okay, let's see. So you can see the little horizontal blooms that were being created when I put my brush across. So if I would have continued just painting, I would have kept playing with that and making these little zigzaggy shapes in the water. Now I'm not sure if I can get that to happen or what'll happen. We'll just see. And again, I do that here as well. You saw me kind of doing that, kind of lifting my brush up and trying to get this motion, moving my brush in the direction of the wave. I think even though it'll destroy some of this and maybe destroy all of this, I'm gonna tempted to darken up underneath there a little more. So, oh well. Fabriano again, super sensitive, so it's gonna lift and lose some of that, lose maybe all of it. But we're watercolorists, we're fearless. Watercolorists laugh at the face of fear. We There was an artist named Frank Frances. I told the group in the workshop that did a demo for Cheap Joe's, and he was doing a really wild sky, and he just loved what was happening apparently because as he's doing it on a Zoom, he says, he says to out loud, he says, "Whoa, I got a lick here, folks. I'm doing a fine job." And he kind of caught himself, congratulating himself in front of everybody. And he says, "Sometimes in this business, you got to pat your own self on the back." So I thought, okay, if he can say that in front of everybody, then anytime I do anything halfway decent, I'm going to be saying, "I'm doing a fine job. I'm doing a fine job." Well, should pop that forward, right? Push this back. Now it's not that dark in the picture, but we're pulling out our artistic license. Maybe. Could happen. Famous last word. What could happen? Tilting the board in the direction I want the paint to move. I want to get a little dark underneath this area here. And again, if you do this on your own, you want to do this all in the one go. Like
What is the paint color that you use for the bottom? Dark blue.
a phthalo blue and indigo. Yeah. I must have complete silence. Like noticing also, wow, it got really quiet. I need to focus.
Do you find any reason to use PBO when you paint?
Masking, yeah. Yeah, I use it. I use it quite a bit. Yeah, I teach I mean, I paint in a variety of approaches, and sometimes I use masking fluid. Yeah, like actually, pretty much all the paintings that I got in the big shows use some masking fluid. So I could. There's more than one way of going about it. Like you're probably saying, well, why didn't he just mask that? You know, you could, but watercolor's like a challenge. That would be too easy. All right, so now let's rough up this edge a little bit. That looks nice. Okay, now I'm going to throw some opaque white on.
Excuse me for just a second. You've got about 5 more minutes for coffee. So if you want any more coffee, get it now.
And while you're at it, why don't you pick up a painting? Pick up a couple paintings. So this is Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White. And when I did Asian brush painting, I was using this, and then I said, "Hey, why not use it in watercolor?" I'm not worried about it unless you enter that one crazy.
We got the president here.
I know. Well, I was on the list of demo, not anymore. Well, I know they invited Herman Pico. If they're inviting Herman Pico, they'll take anybody. Herman Pico, he uses acrylics. Yeah, I took his workshop. He'll put acrylics into his paintings. Yeah, that guy, he goes opaque. I rarely use opaque. It's I like to use the white of the paper. With just a little splash of this will be nice. We should put a sailboat or something into this too. Cheers.
Yes. Like in that commercial of the guy that's going out from the storm approaching.
What's that? Well, I didn't see that commercial.
No.
Oh.
It's for insurance or something. They have these 2 guys, they look like they're from Maine, at a dock, and they said, well, somebody should tell him, some guy in a sailboat
Oh, yeah.
out in the water and there's just lightning and the sky behind him is black.
Hmm.
And they go, he'll figure it out.
So a little spatter of some white there, and we can use the opaque white too to create the action line a little more if we want. But I think it looks pretty good just the way it is. But we'll just drop a little there. And actually, we could bring some shadow into this as well. Let's see. Kind of like we did here, we kind of tinted it a little bit. Doesn't have to be all, whoops, all just bright white. Let's take some of this color and bring it in a few places. Oh, bit of color. So looking pretty wavy. Excellent. Okay. Well, what else does it need? A mermaid? Guys are killing me.
Seagull.
They are a Steyer, that was that's our.
Yeah, I got it in there. A moose?
Minnesota, you probably want a moose or a bear.
Now watch what happens here. See what I just did? It's going to create those little shimmers going up into the wave. Just water. It's creating blooms. Little blooms, little suggestion, the pattern of the water kind of going up in this direction. Hopefully, we'll see what happens. Let's see. Let's get a sailboat in there. I've painted this before, so I'll look at that sailboat. Let's see. Here we go. So here's another painting I did of the same thing. We'll just stick this. And so here's another one. So I've done it a few times. Actually, we should spatter some paint. We didn't do that. We could spatter paint on here too. Should we spatter some paint? Back a little paint. There's never a time they can't ruin it. Let's go for it.
That's good. If you keep saying to yourself, I can't ruin this, I can't ruin this, then you don't put it in back.
Oh, I just spattered a bunch of indigo on there. That's about as brave as you can get. Look at that.
Oh, you were doing it?
Yeah, I just did it right now. Yeah, it's like, hey, let's go for it. What the heck? I'm just in front of a bunch of strangers. What could go wrong? All right. And let's do a couple more squiggles, and we'll leave this part alone. We'll put a boat in there and a couple pterodactyls. We'll be good. Okay. Well, let's put the boat in first. Let's see. Looking at a reference of a boat. There we go. I'll have to use some opaque white again. Or I can lift it. I mean, you can lift it out too. It sounded like it. Let's see. It sounded like a dare. It sounded like a challenge. You double dog dare me? You don't think I can do it, do you? It's like that Click and Clack brothers stump the chump. I don't think you can do it. All right. All right. Let's see.
Thank you.
Let's put boat right here. No, I'm going to use opaque white. It'll take too long to. Well, for lifting, for lifting, I would, you just basically wet it like. Let's get it nice and big, like this, and you just keep doing this and this and this and this, and then hit it with the tissue, and then you get in your oil painting brush, which is right here, So I'll show you how I'd lift it, but it just takes more time. And everybody's gonna want to eat. They're like, come on, Dave, hurry up. You see how it's starting to come?
So how tender is that paper for oil painting brush?
Oh, what?
How tender is that paper when you use that kind of brush?
Oh, it's fine. It'll, nobody will know that I scrubbed the paper, if that's what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you can see the sail coming.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be like really white. It'll get, I can get it pretty darn close. I mean, look at that. And maybe it's better that it's not so bright white, but that Dr. P.H. Martin's, that really gets it pretty darn white. But it can also look a little chalky too, right? So anybody else want to try and stump me with something? What up? Is that all you got? Come on. I heard somebody wants mosquitoes. We don't have mosquitoes in Minnesota. It's just
That's the state.
Pterodactyls.
pterodactyl size mosquitoes, yeah. Which reminds me, I told the four people who took my workshop, hearing the same stories. I took a workshop from Thomas Schaller, Madeline Island, and a horsefly landed on his arm. He's outdoor painting, demonstrating. Horsefly landed on his arm. I just immediately and his arm went across the board with paint, you know. And he's a short guy, and he looked up at me like, "What the heck?" I said, "Hey, I saved your life. I mean, maybe your painting's ruined, but you know, I was going to take a chunk of meat out of you."
You'll live to paint again.
Yeah. So, yeah, the women in Minnesota, they'll come out in the evenings and take their kids off the streets because the pterodactyls will just lift them off. The mosquitoes are so huge. Right. Is that pretty white? Even without any opaque white. Okay, so I can still, oh no, I can't because I already put, I was gonna say, maybe I can enter it next year. Nope, I already get through on the opaque white there. Too late. Too late. Already got the opaque white in there. All right, let's get some mast. Getting some strong indigo. But Payne's gray would be good. Any nice dark. Go something like that. Another little line. I guess I love just demoing like this. I like sharing all my funny stories. Again, all the people in the workshop already heard them. Okay. Oh my God. You want to hear my funniest teaching story? So I used to teach like somebody like Judy mentioned. I taught physical education. You know, basically work in the gym, and I had a little kindergarten class, which is like, you know, teaching little babies. You know, they come in, they're just so small, and they're just like corralling cats. Just they're just all over the place, and that's fine because I'm a pretty laid back guy and I like to have fun with them and everything. But at the end of class, the teacher's going to pick them up, and the teacher wants those kids straight and quiet, like little soldiers, right? Because they're going to have to walk down the hallway and they can't be interrupting all the classes down the hallway. So then I've got to, you know, I got to be real firm and put on the David R. Adult voice. And so I'm like, all right, kids, I need you all straight and quiet. Your teacher's coming. You can't make any noise in that hallway. She needs you straight and quiet in the hallway. And a little girl raised her hand. And I said, yes, Susie. And she said, Mr. Smith, my dad doesn't wear his hair either. Oh gosh. That was precious. So that's not quite the problem, Susie. Drop and give me 20. She'll take a lap. All right, let's put a little white on that boat since we've already ruined it for the TWSA. And if anybody wants this as it turns out and you like it, let me know. I'll sell it for the same price as the other demos are. Let's see. Lots of white here. Maybe put a little white in the sail too.
Put white cap on it?
Just have a white cap going. Oops.
I was just gonna go wave, not a.
Let's get it nice and white. Just dots. All right, there's a little bit of white along the base there. All right, hopefully it looks like white comes down here. A little sparkly. All right, how's that look? All right, thanks for your time. Yeah, appreciate it. Oh, super fun. Yes.
What was the most important thing that you learned, or the most important things that you learned from your experience in China?
Yeah, so I studied the sumie, which is like ink on rice paper. And again, I mentioned this to the class that it was a really helpful transition to watercolor because some of the areas that people struggle in with watercolor is a lot of artists don't use the full range of values, right? They say they're getting dark, but they just get up to here, right? But they never get into the really rich velvety darks, like this really nice dark, which really makes things pop. And so when I did Asian brush painting, well, what are you working with? You're working like sumie, like the ink, right? And so I was used to working really dark. So when I went to watercolor, I was throwing in darks too. I still throw them in probably too soon. Like Herman Pekel took his workshop and he said, David, you never have to worry about going too dark. I like to turn to the dark side. And so that really helps. So, and we know that darkest dark against the lightest light, is going to bring the eye into that area. So being able to get your really rich darks in is really helpful. Another thing, there's a lot of things, but another thing was with working on rice paper, you can't edit anything. You can't change things. Everything's like one stroke painting. And so you have to be pretty brave. You have to go for it. If it doesn't work out, it's like working on a tissue. You put it on there, it doesn't work out, you crumple it, throw it in the garbage, get a new piece of paper out and try it again. And so when I went to watercolor, everybody, is kind of really kind of overworking sometimes and is really cautious, and I'm more brave. I just go for it. Or a little bit more brave. And so that was a nice thing is being a little braver maybe. And then I don't use it too often. Sometimes we in watercolor or in Asian brush painting you triple load or put multiple colors on the brush and do the one stroke, and they all kind of blend together in a nice gradation. And so that was kind of a neat thing. Sometimes I'll do that. Put multiple colors on my brush and drop them in. So yeah, it was. Those are some of the things that it helped with as far as like techniques and approaches. Of course, there's composition, their unique composition. We've heard like Chen Chi always just said mama bear, papa bear, baby bear, right? And when I did the Asian brush painting, the instructor would say, think host-guest relationship, same kind of idea, like a dominant shape and a non-dominant shape, and how you compose it. They always have it kind of triangular, like if you're doing a peony, there's this big host peony, then there's the bud, and there's a smaller one, and they're kind of composed in this kind of triangle shape, and there's trying to balance the composition and make it pleasing that way. So there's a lot of things that it helped with. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. There's a white bird. As long as I already ruined it with white. Another. I gotta give him a friend. There we go. All right. All right. Yeah. Take a look at it if you want. Thanks so much again, everybody.